We weren't totally prepared, but we got prepared very quickly, and we broke speed records.
I mean, it is extraordinary, unlike anything I think anyone has ever seen, especially in this time frame.
When the global pandemic first hit, infectious disease doctors like Vince Marconi had few medicines for their very sick patients. Fortunately at Emory, doctors like Marconi often talk to researchers like Raymond Shinazi, who has led several landmark studies at Emory over the years on potential treatments for viruses like HIV. Could their research also be applied to COVID-19?
We had the hypothesis that by reducing inflammation, you can actually reduce the viral reservoir. But most important, we found that these JAK inhibitors were actually safe and did have an impact on HIV.
JAK inhibitors are drugs that block enzymes in the body driving inflammation. One such drug is baricitinib, which is manufactured by Eli Lilly and primarily used for rheumatoid arthritis. Dr. Bahuma Tatanji is a physician researcher fellow at Emory who works both in Dr. Shinazi's lab and also on the clinical side with Dr. Marconi.
You're not only looking at a patient as a clinician, you're constantly drawing from all of the research that you're exposed to see how that knowledge can be best applied to help your patient.
That knowledge was instrumental in the treatment of a gravely ill patient at the VA Medical Center.
And this was the first patient that we gave the JAK inhibitor baricitinib to. And the patient had a really remarkable turnaround within 72 hours of starting the drug.
It's part serendipity, it's part science, and all of a sudden you see the collision of multiple events at the same time.
Starting with her time as a graduate student with Shinazi, Christina Gavinano had a track record of studying drugs like baricitinib for their use against HIV.
We've done a lot of studies with it in the lab, in vitro as well as in animal models, and demonstrated its effectiveness, especially for HIV. Maybe it could be useful also for COVID.
And when The Lancet published its study showing baricitinib could work against COVID-19, corroborating the work being done here, Emory experts were quickly able to marshal resources and begin treating actual patients. Leveraging their contacts with industry and at the National Institutes of Health, Marconi and Shinazi pushed for baricitinib to be part of a nationwide clinical trial.
A large multinational trial of over 1,000 patients led by the NIH, which has now been completed. So now we have evidence that our observations were actually something.
Successes like this don't happen by accident.
There's always a story behind the story, and the story behind the story is that our team was working on this for 10 years for HIV, and that there was a huge amount of data that we garnered together that showed mechanistically how this drug works, why it works, and what it does for inflammation.
I think that culture, that ethos, is really, I think, at the core of what allows these things to happen.